Has life in Germany really changed as much as it's been told in recent years? In this video, you will find the candid confessions of a state's interior minister, a rise deemed dangerous by German intelligence, and the issues people have been complaining about in Germany in recent years. When you consider your own life, some comments must come to your mind, but wait until the end of the video to write.
From the period when the Berlin Wall was demolished, the Cold War ended, and the East and West united. Until 2017, the German industry experienced approximately 40% growth. However, after the peak period in 2017, it shrank by approximately 17%. They are currently back to the data of 2016. Their economic growth has been stagnant since 2017. In fact, it has even shrunk in the last 2 years. Generally, the world has been in a crisis since the pandemic. But Germany is also showing poor economic performance compared to countries in its class. For instance, an intriguing statistic shows that the European Union's average post-pandemic growth rate is 2%. But if we remove Germany from this average, the post-pandemic growth rate of the European Union approaches 3%. Of course, beyond the numbers, the data concerning the people living there is also important. The video's main point is that life in Germany has become harder in recent years. Currently, unemployment rates in Germany are slightly below pre-pandemic levels. So employment has increased, but if we zoom in a bit, we see that the job descriptions of the employed people have changed. The number of people working in high-paying jobs that produce added value has decreased. However, the number of people employed in service jobs like store managers, baristas, couriers, and drivers has risen. Let's immediately substantiate this with concrete news. Bosch, both a major appliance manufacturer and one of the largest suppliers in the automotive industry, announced that it could lay off between 8,000 and 10,000 employees. ThyssenKrupp, one of the world's largest steel manufacturers, announced plans to lay off about 40% of its workforce, or approximately 11,000 employees. ZF Axing, a manufacturer of transmissions, differentials, and power transmission units for the automotive industry, announced plans to lay off 12,000 employees and shift its capacities for both R&D and production to countries with cheaper labor, such as Eastern Europe and India. Deutsche Bahn, the German railways, which reported a net loss of 1.2 billion euros in the first 6 months of 2024 due to strikes and bad weather conditions, announced plans to lay off 30,000 people. In addition to these, many more companies have announced and continue to announce plans to reduce their workforce. However, the most shocking came from Volkswagen, the flagship of the German automotive industry. Volkswagen used to provide job security for its employees in Germany unless they wanted to leave. But in September 2024, they ended this guarantee that they had been implementing for 30 years. They announced plans to close 3 factories and lay off 18% of their employees. For the first time in their nearly 90-year history, they were considering closing a factory within the country. Additionally, experts were saying that it wouldn't be limited to just 3 factories. As a result of strikes and pressure from Germany's largest union, IG Metall, they announced that they would only lay off 35,000 employees by 2030, close only 1 factory, and that factory would close in 2027. The economy created negatives not only in terms of work and production, but also on people's daily lives. In a country where there were very low inflation rates for many years, market prices were hardly changing. After the pandemic, as in many developed countries, people living in Germany also faced inflation that created significant increases in prices for the first time. 2022 was the peak of this. The prices of some supermarket products almost doubled in a short time. Many of them have seriously increased in price. Similarly, other non-food consumer products also experienced rapid price increases in a short time. As of 2024, inflation in the country seems to be under control. However, the prices that increased during the fluctuations remain constant, and the purchasing power of the people melted compared to previous periods. Once upon a time, when defining German goods, an ambitious adjective like superior German technology was used. However, in this period when artificial intelligence developments are changing the world, Germany has fallen behind in terms of technology and digitization. According to the report of the European Center for Digital Competitiveness, 95% of experts believe that Germany has fallen behind in terms of digitization, and more importantly, no significant progress is expected in the near future. This situation is making people's lives more difficult, both in production and in daily life. For example, while the electric car revolution is happening worldwide, Germany, known as the heart of the automotive industry, seems to be lagging behind its competitors, especially American and Chinese brands. When we look at daily life, it is clear that Germany is lagging behind many countries in digitization. Even countries thought to be socioeconomically behind Germany, like Turkey and Estonia, have completely moved their citizens' transactions with the government to the digital environment. In contrast, government offices in Germany are still conducting many transactions in writing. Online services are quite limited. For example, you need to apply physically even for a simple address change. The German government may have reservations about digital security, but as the world rapidly digitizes, the use of old and cumbersome methods for simple transactions poses a major problem. Moreover, when we take into account the already infamous slowness of German bureaucracy, it is clear that this lack of digitization has made people's lives increasingly difficult in recent years. After World War II, Germany focused on state-supported social housing projects during the reconstruction process. Due to the great economic devastation caused by the war, these houses were offered to the public at low rents instead of being sold. This practice led to the spread of a rental culture in the country, and over time, it became a permanent habit. Today, Germany is one of the countries with the lowest home ownership rate in the European Union and among developed countries. While the number of tenants continues to increase, the home ownership rate continues to decline with the worsening economic conditions. This situation is causing rents to rise. Currently, there is a housing shortage of over 800,000 in the country, and this gap is growing every year. When we look at the ownership distribution of rental houses, we see that approximately 50% belong to individuals, 35% to large investment funds and real estate companies, and 15% to public institutions. Especially investment funds and companies are becoming increasingly influential in the real estate market. According to the German Federal Statistical Office, about 10 million people, mostly single or divorced individuals, living with their children, are living in cramped conditions in small houses. The government aims to build 400,000 new homes a year, including 100,000 social housing, but due to high interest rates and rising costs, this goal seems difficult to achieve. Today in Germany, finding affordable rental housing has turned into a challenging process that takes months. Most applications to see a rental house end with the response, "Sorry, we chose someone else." This reveals how deep the housing crisis in Germany has become. From the mid-1980s onwards, as the Soviet Union-led Eastern Bloc was struggling with crises and approaching collapse, the refugee influx towards Germany began to accelerate. In 1984, the country had around 126,000 refugees, but after the 1989 collapse of the Eastern Bloc, the number surged to over 800,000. The majority of those arriving were citizens of former socialist countries, such as Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria. With the outbreak of the Yugoslav War, the number of refugees in Germany rapidly increased, exceeding 1,401,000 in 1994. However, thanks to the immigration policies developed after this date, they gradually reduced the number, and by 2013, they had reduced it to approximately 191. However, with the start of the Arab Spring and the Syrian Civil War, Germany once again faced a large wave of migration. Today, there are approximately 2.6 million refugees in the country. If they hadn't made agreements with some countries to keep the refugees in those countries, these numbers could have reached much more worrying levels. The increase in the number of refugees was one of the significant factors triggering the housing and rent crisis. While the state's provision of housing, education, language courses, and social assistance to refugees brings an additional burden to the public budget. Their increased access to health services created congestion in hospitals and doctors' examinations. Some German citizens who think their taxes are being spent on refugees have reacted, while security concerns have also increased. Crime news in the media fueled prejudices against refugees, leading to tensions in society. This situation has led to tensions between refugees and the local population in some areas, paving the way for anti-immigrant groups and right-wing populist parties to gain strength, thereby changing the political atmosphere in Germany. Following the refugee crisis, immigration policies have become one of the biggest political debates in Germany. The far-right populist party, known for its anti-immigrant rhetoric, also known as the Alternative for Germany or simply Alternative for Germany, has gained increasing power during this process. The Alternative for Germany, founded just before the 2013 refugee crisis began, failed to cross the 5% threshold in its first election, receiving only 4.7% of the vote. However, it managed to enter the parliament by receiving 12.6% of the vote in the 2017 elections and 10.3% in 2021. Today, it ranks second with approximately 20% of the vote according to polls, and its political influence is steadily increasing. The adoption of a non-binding motion presented in the parliament to prevent irregular migration with the support of the Alternative for Germany has drawn great criticism and led to mass protests. In 2021, German intelligence announced that it had classified the Alternative for Germany as a suspicious case, having come to the conclusion that it could be against the Constitution. Mainstream political parties in Germany have made an informal agreement not to cooperate with far-right parties and groups in order to prevent history from repeating itself. This agreement, referred to as a firewall, was established taking lessons from the history of Nazi Germany. However, the possibility of this firewall being torn down has become one of the biggest concerns in the political atmosphere in Germany. One of the factors that has made life difficult in Germany in recent years has been the rising crime rates. In 2023, crime rates rose by about 5.5% from the prior year, totaling almost 6 million offenses. This marked the highest level of crime in the last 15 years. The crime rate in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia increased by 3.4% in 2023. The state's Interior Minister, Herbert Reul, emphasized in a statement to the German press that the mood of the society is changing increasingly. Reul, a member of the Christian Democratic Union Party, said problems are now being solved with fists, not words. The fuse is getting shorter, disagreements are turning into violent incidents much faster. He expressed his concerns by saying that society is like a powder keg. Germany faced a serious energy crisis following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In response to the sanctions imposed by Western countries on Russia, Russia reduced and at times completely stopped the flow of gas to Europe. Germany, which is heavily dependent on Russian gas, felt the effects of this situation severely. The interruptions in natural gas supply and uncertainties in the global energy market caused prices to rise rapidly. In 2023, the price per cubic meter of natural gas almost doubled compared to 2 years ago and continues to remain at high levels.
This video compared Germany's current situation to its past, rather than making a comparison between Germany and Turkey. Despite recent difficulties, it still offers high living standards and ranks as the world's third largest. We're talking about a country with the third largest economy. Otherwise, it still has very good conditions for those with an established order.